This is the story of Eloilda Ellie Shea. She was a dedicated officer, a loving mother of 2 daughters, a rising star in the Orange County Sheriff's Office, but on May 6, 2023, her life was tragically cut short. Ellie Shae, just 39 years old, was found dead in her home. The initial report, an apparent suicide. The news sent shockwaves through the community. Ellie was respected, she was admired, and now she was gone. The scene at Ellie Shae's home was confusing. Deputies responded to a suicide call, but something didn't feel right. As they investigated, a darker truth began to emerge. This was no suicide. Ellie Shae had been murdered, and the prime suspect, her estranged husband, Anthony Shay. The news was devastating. How could this happen, and how could someone like Anthony, a former Orange County Sheriff's deputy himself, be involved? The weight of Ellie's death hung heavy over the Orange County Sheriff's Office. Colleagues struggled to comprehend the loss. The department mourned the loss of one of their own. Ellie's family was left to pick up the pieces. 2 young girls now without a mother. The pain was immeasurable, the questions endless. Why did this happen? What led to this tragic act of violence? And could it have been prevented? On that fateful day, May 6, 2023, a call went out. A call that would shatter the peace of a quiet neighborhood. A call that would change everything. Possible suicide. The dispatcher's voice crackled over the police radio. The address, Prado Avenue. The victim, a woman found unresponsive. First responders rushed to the scene, their hearts pounded in their chests. Every second counted, every life was precious. They arrived at a modest, single-story home. The door was ajar, a sense of urgency hung in the air. Inside, they found Eloilda Ellie Shea. She lay lifeless in her bedroom. A single gunshot wound marred her head, a tragic sight. The initial assessment seemed straightforward. A gun lay nearby. The scene appeared to confirm the initial report, a suicide, but something wasn't right. A shadow of doubt crept into the minds of the investigators. Subtle inconsistencies, details that didn't quite add up. Whispers of uncertainty circulated among the officers. Could this be something more than a suicide? Could there be more to this story? The investigators couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. Their instincts told them to dig deeper, to look beyond the surface. They began to meticulously process the scene. Every piece of evidence was scrutinized, every detail examined. The gun, the position of the body, the lack of a suicide note. All of it pointed towards a chilling possibility. This was no suicide. This was a carefully staged crime scene. Ellie Shae hadn't taken her own life. She had been murdered. The investigation took a sharp turn. No longer were they looking at a suicide. This was now a homicide investigation. And the prime suspect, Ellie Shae's estranged husband, Anthony. The news rippled through the department. Anthony Shay, a former deputy himself. Could he really be capable of such a heinous act? The investigators knew they had to tread carefully. They needed concrete evidence. Evidence that would stand up in court. The pressure was on. Every passing moment felt critical. They owed it to Ellie. They owed it to her family. They owed it to the community to find the truth. Section 2, A Husband's Story. Anthony Shay cooperated with the investigation. He willingly answered questions. He painted a picture of a troubled marriage. He spoke of arguments, of infidelity. He claimed Ellie was struggling, that she was depressed. He insisted he had nothing to do with her death. But the investigators were trained to see through facades. Something about Anthony's story didn't sit right. His demeanor was too calm, too rehearsed. They dug deeper into Anthony's past, his record, his relationships. They spoke to friends, family, colleagues. They were determined to uncover the truth. Section 3, Unmasking the Truth. As the investigation progressed, cracks began to appear in Anthony's story. Inconsistencies emerged. Alibis crumbled. The pieces of the puzzle were starting to fall into place. Forensic evidence told a different story. Gunshot residue, fingerprints, and DNA analysis all pointed to Anthony's involvement. The investigators discovered a history of domestic disputes. Whispers of Anthony's controlling behavior and jealousy surfaced. A disturbing pattern emerged. The truth was slowly being revealed. Anthony's carefully constructed facade was crumbling. He wasn't the grieving husband he pretended to be. He was a master manipulator, a cold-blooded killer. Section 4, a shocking arrest. On May 12, 2023, 6 days after Ellie Shae's body was found, Anthony Shay was arrested. The charge, first-degree murder. The news sent shockwaves through the community, a collective gasp of horror and disbelief. How could someone sworn to protect the law betray it in such a horrific way? The arrest was a small victory for Ellie's grieving family and colleagues, but it was only the beginning of a long and arduous journey for justice. As the investigation into Ellie Shae's murder deepened, the focus shifted to the background of her estranged husband, Anthony Shay. The former deputy, once regarded as a protector of the law, was now at the center of a horrifying crime. The Orange County Sheriff's Office, already reeling from the loss of one of their own, was forced to confront the possibility that their former colleague was capable of such a heinous act. The investigation revealed a troubled past, one that Anthony had desperately tried to conceal. Interviews with former colleagues and acquaintances painted a picture of a man battling personal demons. Whispers of infidelity, aggressive behavior, and a volatile temper started to surface. The once respected deputy was quickly becoming the embodiment of everything they stood against. The betrayal cut deep, leaving a stain on the badge they all wore. The investigation uncovered a series of internal affairs complaints against Anthony Shay dating back several years. Allegations of misconduct, harassment, and abuse of power had been lodged against him. While some complaints were dismissed due to lack of evidence, others resulted in disciplinary action. The patterns of behavior were impossible to ignore. Anthony Shay was a ticking time bomb, and the Orange County Sheriff's Office had failed to defuse him. The internal investigation that ultimately led to Anthony Shay's resignation was particularly damning. He had been accused of having an inappropriate relationship with a subordinate officer and engaging in sexual acts while on duty. These allegations, if proven true, represented a gross violation of the public's trust and a betrayal of the very oath he swore to uphold. The weight of Anthony Shay's actions extended far beyond the walls of the Orange County Sheriff's Office. The community he had sworn to protect and serve was left feeling betrayed and vulnerable. The trust they had placed in their law enforcement officers had been shattered. The case sparked outrage and anger, raising questions about accountability and transparency within the department. How could someone with such a troubled past rise through the ranks of law enforcement? Why hadn't the previous complaints been taken more seriously? The demand for answers was palpable. The Orange County Sheriff's Office found itself caught in the eye of a storm. They were tasked with not only seeking justice for Ellie Shae, but also with rebuilding the trust that had been so carelessly broken. The Orange County Sheriff's Office was a somber place in the days and weeks following Ellie Shae's murder. The hallways, once bustling with activity and camaraderie, were now shrouded in a heavy silence. Every corner held a memory of Ellie, a constant reminder of the life tragically taken. Her locker, adorned with photos of her daughters and mementos from her career, remained untouched, a silent testament to the sudden void left in their lives. Her colleagues, still grappling with the shock and grief, struggled to carry on with their duties, their hearts heavy with the weight of her absence. The roll call, a routine part of their shift, became an agonizing reminder of Ellie's absence. As her name was called, met with silence, a wave of emotion would wash over the room, a mix of sorrow, anger, and disbelief. The void left by Ellie Shae was not just professional, it was deeply personal. She was more than just a colleague. She was a friend, a confidant, a source of strength and inspiration. Her laughter, her kindness, her unwavering dedication to her work, all gone, leaving an emptiness that seemed impossible to fill. The pain of Ellie Shae's loss was felt most acutely by her family, particularly her two young daughters. The girls, robbed of their mother's love and guidance, were now left to navigate life's journey without their biggest cheerleader. The thought of their innocent faces, etched with confusion and pain, was almost too much to bear. The once vibrant home they shared was now shrouded in silence, the echoes of Ellie's laughter replaced by a deafening emptiness. The toys scattered around, a testament to a happy childhood abruptly interrupted, served as a painful reminder of the future stolen from them. Friends and family rallied around the girls, offering comfort and support during this unimaginable time. But nothing could truly fill the void left by their mother's absence. The bond they shared, unbreakable and pure, had been tragically severed, leaving an unhealable wound. The world mourned the loss of a dedicated officer, a loyal friend and a respected colleague, but for Ellie Shae's daughters, the world mourned the loss of their mother, their protector, their everything. Sheriff John Mina, visibly shaken and struggling to maintain his composure, addressed the media, his voice thick with emotion. He spoke of Ellie Shae's unwavering dedication to her job, her infectious smile, and her genuine compassion for the community she served. Ellie cared deeply about this agency and the work we do, he said, his voice cracking. I considered her a rising star. We have all struggled this week with feelings of shock, grief, and guilt while we tried to make sense of Ellie's death. He paused, the weight of his words hanging heavy in the air. The sheriff's words resonated with everyone present. Ellie Shae was more than just a name on a badge. She was a shining example of what it meant to be a law enforcement officer. Her commitment to justice, her empathy for victims, and her unwavering belief in the power of community policing had left an indelible mark on the department. It's devastating to know we will never again be on the receiving end of Ellie's kindness or warm smile, Sheriff Mina continued, his voice filled with sorrow. We pray for her two girls, the rest of her family, and all of those who love her. His words, heartfelt and sincere, reflected the profound sense of loss felt by everyone who had the privilege of knowing Ellie Shae. A rising star had been dimmed, leaving a void in their lives and in the community she served, a void that would never be truly filled. The murder of Ellie Shae sent shockwaves through the community and beyond. It was a stark reminder that domestic violence can touch anyone, anywhere, regardless of their profession or social standing. And behind the badge, Ellie was a daughter, a mother, a friend, a colleague, a life full of promise, cut tragically short. As the trial of Anthony Shay unfolds, the focus remains on seeking justice for Ellie, on holding him accountable for his actions, on ensuring that her daughters, robbed of their mother's love, will one day see justice served. But justice for Ellie extends beyond the courtroom. It's about honoring her memory. It's about continuing her legacy of service and compassion. It's about creating a world where domestic violence is not tolerated, where victims are heard, believed, and supported. Ellie's story is a reminder that we must do better. We must stand up against domestic violence in all its forms. We must break the silence. We must be a voice for the voiceless. The tragic death of Ellie Shae exposed systemic issues within law enforcement agencies across the country. Issues of domestic violence, accountability, and transparency. Issues that can no longer be ignored. The Orange County Sheriff's Office has vowed to learn from this tragedy, to review their internal investigation procedures, to provide better support for victims of domestic violence within their ranks. But the responsibility doesn't end there. It falls on all of us to demand change, to hold our law enforcement agencies accountable, to create a culture where victims feel safe coming forward, where perpetrators are held responsible for their actions. Ellie Shae dedicated her life to protecting others. Now, it's our turn to honor her memory by protecting those who protect us, by creating a world where every life is valued, where every voice is heard, and where justice prevails.